Okay, hello everybody. We're here to present this session. We weren't aware what sort of conference this was when we submitted it, despite having spoken upwards of 15 times before in some cases at OSCON. So we've retitled our talk appropriately. This is the title of our talk now. Hopefully that makes sense. And everyone understands what we're here to talk about. It's very important. Some of those words are actually in the presentation. We'll leave it to you to figure out which ones we actually end up talking about. This is actually 5 completely separate talks. Would you like to take a picture of it? There you go. Yeah. Are you done? Yes. Thank you. Right. This is actually 5 completely separate talks. We did not coordinate with each other until this morning in the speaker's lounge when we assembled this talk. So this could be a train wreck, it could be amazing. So welcome. Hello, this is who we are. You can troll us on Twitter during the presentation if you would like. 2 of us have actual doctorates. One of them is tenuously related to Kerbal Space Program. 2 of us are almost doctors. Neither of those are related to Kerbal Space Program. And Paul has more qualifications than any of us because he is an actual mad scientist. So please feel free to troll us on Twitter. We are nominally writing a book about the material in this presentation. It might be out by Christmas.
It will be out by Christmas, or I will kill all of you.
Our editor is Rachel, the program chair, so it has to be out by Christmas. Put it
oh, them, not
so,
you.
With the exception of Alasdair, we're all from Australia. And he's from Scotland, so please accept our apologies for the way we speak. We speak real funny. We're obviously here to speak about Kerbal Space Program. Now, as we did informally before, about half of you have played it and half of you haven't. KSP, Kerbal Space Program, is a video game. It lets you design, build, launch, and fly spaceships that behave somewhat like real spaceships. It's pretty cool. It's actually so realistic that there are XKCDs about it. It is very popular. It is an awesome game. You should play it. And hopefully by the end of today's session, you will know why you should play it. Part of the appeal is the fact you play with this little idiot and a whole bunch of his friends. They're all stupid little green men. They're really irritating, but they're amazing because they just sit there grinning wildly the whole time while you play the game. They're really, really dumb. You can do a lot of things with Kerbal Space Program. Really, the core thing that Kerbal Space Program is about is an unlimited supply of free rockets. That's pretty amazing, and you can use Kerbal Space Program to test a great bunch of crazy hypotheses, such as a bunch of other things. So this is the launch of the CSR-4, I think, by SpaceX. Like all launches, you can see it curving its trajectory immediately after launch. Now, despite you being all very highly educated, you might be wondering why it's curving when space is actually up, right? Hopefully you're all thinking that. So space is up, it's that way. So like this, these are high quality diagrams drawn by John, by the way. We'll launch a rocket and go straight upwards and see what happens. So we're going to have a look at a quick video, and John's going to run you through that.
Okay, so here we are putting together our rocket. So really quickly slapping together the rocket in KSP, building everything, all the staging, all of the control surfaces, all of the everything we need, and also sticking on extra boosters because you can never have too many boosters. So, all good, let's go. Run the launch pad, and we launch straight upwards. We're traveling, accelerating really fast, actually faster than we really should be, and that's totally fine because in the bottom right-hand corner, as you saw in a second, we've got Jeb. He's having a great time. So he's on the way, actually breaking the sound barrier going so fast. That's fine, this is fine, and we actually travel so fast that we begin to heat up on the way out. This is de-entry burning. So we're actually going up so fast that we're starting to catch fire. So yeah, really, really way up. Okay, but eventually that's fine. We will run out of fuel soon, I hope. So eventually, so still going straight up. Engine cuts out. Now take a look at that. Hang on, that's not an orbit. We are going up and then back down again. Okay, we got to deal with this. So now we're going all the way back down again, and gravity is taking its toll, and we're starting to get some horrible re-entry burn, starting to catch fire again. That's fine because I was foresighted and I added in a heat shield. So that's totally fine. So we detach, and that's going to be all right. We're catching fire still, that's fine. Tell the flight computer to aim in the direction of down to catch as much as possible. That's still, we're okay, we're fine. Things are heating up, and explosions are happening all around us. That's the rocket exploding beneath us. You didn't see out of here. So this is a bit problematic now. So that's fine. We've got a parachute. I brought a parachute. Not a problem. Okay, let's activate the parachute. So.
Any minute now. Oh.
Oh. So, yeah, the reason why it happened was because we actually traveling so fast, the parachute got destroyed by how far up and down we went. So, lesson learned, space is not up. Okay, so why is that?
So that's the first thing we're going to talk to you about. What happened here? It falls back down to the ground. What happened to zero gravity? There's no gravity in space, thank you. Why did it fall down? Any rocket scientists here who can tell us that? No, no, go away. This proves space is fake.
Right.
Let's actually work out what went wrong here. So this is space with a planet. We've got our rockets very high up, way up. When we orbit, we actually want to move sideways. The gravity of the planet is also pulling us back down to the ground. Because both of these things are happening at the same time, containers, with a trajectory that never hits the ground. So that's how space actually works. Traditionally, all our rockets tend to be the big, same style, a big, I'm not going to say this, a big, long thrusting tube. The reason we do this is because we know that these work, and it's expensive to risk sending stuff up that might not work. So NASA, ESA, SpaceX, and so on, they can't afford unnecessary risk. These guys are not about unnecessary risk. They're happy to get in the big thrusting tube and do whatever you tell them to do, which is why this game is amazing. So we're going to have a look at some experiments. Can we use a catapult to get to space is our first experiment that we're going to look at. And here is John again to tell you about this.
All right, so this is, I'm not going to speak.
What the?
Turns out, yeah, you can. There is a bit of a consequence, though, because it can cause some problems on the ground. So
the result is obviously, I guess we can use a catapult to get to space. So space might not be fake. Experiment 2, why don't we try launching rockets sideways? We could give them wings, they'll probably go up.
yeah, I mean, wings make you go up, right?
Let's take a quick look at that. So the result here is that we need to do more experiments. Let's take a look at another experiment. Can we build a rocket designed to usefully explode? This seems more in line with our skill and experience level. So this is pretty impressive. It looks good. Yep, good so far.
Yeah.
Right.
So, answer? Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. we can definitely do that. So we're going to talk about part 2 of the talk, getting off the rock.
Cool. So, one problem that we have as human beings on this planet is we only have one planet. And that's a bit of a problem. Solution, get more. So, all right. Humans need to have certain things. We need air to breathe, we need water to drink, we need food to eat. Otherwise, we don't tend to last very long. So that's actually a problem in space because there isn't air or food or water. And this is a very difficult problem to solve. But we can use tools like Kerbal Space Program to model this kind of problem. So, and of course, so like the asteroids are coming, so, you know, better deal with that soon. All right, so we're going to model a colonization program inside Kerbal Space Program. And we're going to do this using a few different options. We have a few options for landing on planets. We can go to the moon, we can go to the Mars equivalent, it's called Duna, we can go to a really interesting planet called Eve that's really heavy, or we can go to a very, very distant but easy to get to moon called Minmus, which is low gravity. Or we might try some other distant planets. So there are a few different pros and cons for these. The Mars equivalent, Duna, it's really pretty, looks nice, and also, you know, people want to go to Mars. It's a big, big goal. It is far away though, and because it's a different planet, we have to deal with transit windows. You can't just go, let's go to the moon now. You have to wait like 3 years. So, and also, it's the one plus is it does have an atmosphere, which is, you know, it helps you with aero braking, which is nice. Okay, next up we have the moon, which is the moon. It's very close by. It's very easy to get to, but it's quite ugly. It's grey and black, and also it's quite bumpy, and that becomes a problem when landing, because you don't land and then fall over. So that can be a problem. Okay, what about Minmus? Minmus is almost as close as the moon. It has a lot of flat surfaces, very good for landing, and it's very pretty. It's also mint ice cream flavored, and that is confirmed by EVAs. In the game, you can actually verify this. It is slightly tricky to get to because the orbit is inclined slightly, but that's no big deal.
So our decision is Minmus.
Yep. So what do you need in space? You need supplies, you need food and water, you need electricity, you also need, ideally, the ability to regenerate resources that you're consuming. All right, so let's go, and also we want to be able to build more rockets eventually. So our missions are going to be send some people, send some supplies, and eventually a whole bunch of waves that are going to build up a colony. So the things that we send are going to be things like a pioneer pod, like the first thing, the little base, a nuclear reactor to provide power, a habitat to give people a place to live, a greenhouse to grow all our food, all the things that we will need when we travel to other planets and colonize them. So this is trying to be as close to real as possible.
Despite our madness, KSP is quite realistic.
And we'll be learning more about realism as well from Paul later on. So, to support this in KSP, we use mods. KSP has fantastic support for mods, and again, you'll be hearing more about that. So we're using the USI Life Support mod, which introduces a resource called the Nutritional Optimized Meal Supplement.
NOMS.
The NOMS. So Kerbals
Containers.
Containers. Kerbals eat NOMS, and they produce waste. You can use a greenhouse to convert the mulch waste back into supplies, but not all of it. So you will eventually run out. So a greenhouse can extend your lifetime, but not all the way. You need to get more resources from planets that you go to survive. We're also using the modular colony system mod, which adds a bunch of parts. Things like hydroponics things, which will improve your greenhouses. Things like resource extraction, so you can actually mine materials and build new rocket parts and travel out from the planet that you landed on, so you aren't creating like this second tier place. So this mod is designed for both in space, so orbital colonies, as well as on planet colonies. It's really fun. Okay, so let's colonize. So we're going to build a colony on Minmus. First part is going to be the Pioneer Pod. This is using a sky crane to land it very slowly, gradually onto the flat surfaces, so dried up lake beds of Minmus. Once it's attached, then we'll fly away this thing. So our colony is now safe on the ground. Fantastic, all well and good. Now we're going to land our power supply. Power supplies, turns out, are really heavy because they're nuclear reactors, so that's a bit difficult. So we land the thing and then very gently touch down, and then whoa, and that's fine. Actually turns out it's so heavy that it's actually difficult to maneuver, so I drove the original base to it. So we use these things called extendo tubes to try and reach, and that can be a problem as well because things get pushed out of the way, and so this took a few attempts. So that's fine. And my mouse like freaking out of there, but eventually I realized that, dock, and then like slowly approach yourself. So all is good there. So now we have power and people. So we have a colony of 4 people on the moon, and we'll land some more later on as well. So we'll deploy the legs and stabilize, and all is really good there. Fantastic. Next up, the habitat in the greenhouse. So we'll land it, and again, drive as close as we can. We connect it. Now, this is actually based on real-life designs. So this is based on inflatable habitats that NASA have designed. So there's two buildings here. The greenhouse, which is going to be used to grow all our food, and also the habitat. So just go on the other side of that module and deploy the habitat, and yep, that's fine, don't worry about it, it's fine. So here is the beginnings of a colony. Now, once you have that, you can start doing things like prospecting for resources, and you do this again in a very realistic way. So you use satellites that can scan a planet from orbit and use to locate resources. New resources get added by other mods. So we're going to scan for water here. So now we're seeing a view of where, and this is all like mod provided. So this wasn't built into the game. So then we'll use a camera to get a closer look and like peer down to see where we should start mining for water or other resources. So once we have that in place, we can start doing things like, okay, there's different resources. Here's carbonite, we can refine that into fuel. Here's metallic ore, we can eventually build other rockets from that, and substrate, which we can use for our farms and all that. So from there, it's a matter of getting your server into the right place above the colony and then scanning everything and making sure that you have a fairly good idea of what you can do to help your colony survive and thrive. So that is the modular colonization system, and yeah, it's a free mod you can download for KSP, and it's fantastic. So this video will end in a second.
Yep.
Yep. Oh yeah, and also like you can see information about like how much resources in a certain area. So very, very cool. All right, go to the next slide.
So what can we learn from this? We can learn that space colonization is actually really hard because you knock things over and drop things, all that good stuff, and it's quite challenging. Yes. Eventually we might get to something like this.
Yeah. So this is an O'Neill cylinder. If you're not familiar with that,
So Babylon 5.
Yeah.
This is what Babylon 5 was, kind of.
Yeah. So this was painted in the late 60s, early 70s, and B5 basically said, "Oh yeah, that's cool. Let's do that."
Okay, so next we're going to take to part 3, which is Paul.
Yes.
So I'm going to give Paul the clicker.
Awesome.
And
Thank
we'll clumsily
you.
hand over here.
Hi everyone. My name's Paul. So this is really ironic because I'm doing the serious part of this talk. Now, I actually love this image because this is also one of the release images for the CCAN, which is what I'm going to be talking to you about today. The CCAN is the Comprehensive Kerbal Archive Network. And for any of you who have used TeX, there's the Comprehensive TeX Archive Network, or there's the Comprehensive Perl Archive Network. It's a similar sort of thing. Our goal is to index every mod that exists for KSP and make it easy to install. Now, KSP is a great game, but I rapidly discovered it's an awesome game once you install mods. And the first thing I did is like, oh, here's KSP. I'm going to start installing mods and everything. I'm going to install them by hand. And I used to play a career mode called Realistic Progression Lite. So keep that in mind, that's the name. The instructions for installing it, you can't read this, but it begins with at the top, you must do all these things. And one of the things which it says at the top is you must do all the things in that second list as well, which are all of these mods which you must install. And one of the mods that you have to install in there is Realism Overhaul. And to install Realism Overhaul, you have to install all of these mods. So to do all of this was just insane. And it would take me, first time I set this up, it was like 2 days of crying into my computer. And then there was a new release of Kerbal Space Program, and all the mods needed to be updated again. So I'm like, no, there is no way that you could possibly do this in a sustainable way. I'm writing this book and I'm trying to explain to people, how do you install mods? Well, you need to read a document written by a human, and then you need another human to carry out the instructions inside that. I'm like, this is never going to work. So I thought I'd hack something together, and the very first one was kind of written in Perl, but it's like apt-get for KSP. So I disappeared from everywhere for a little while, and
we started this last OSCON.
300 hours later, that's my longest streak there, is the 60 days, the CCAN was born. Hello CCAN, there we go. So the wonderful thing about this logo is it was actually designed by one of the International Space Station engineers, and we also have permission from our squad to use their branding and everything. So what the CCAN is, there's two parts of it. It has a GUI, which may be a little bit hard to see here because there's lots of stuff going on, but there are hundreds of mods here which you can select. There's information on the right saying what information you've got about them, and really it's a case of you tick the ones which you want and you say install them. And it knows what the dependencies are, it knows what it conflicts with, it can spot mods which have been updated and update them for you. It is absolutely fantastic. It is cross-platform. It works on Mac, it works on Linux, it works on Windows. It has minimal dependencies. It does require mono, but it has very few dependencies other than that. And everything is under an MIT and CC0 license. So you can take the code and do anything you want. You can take the metadata and do anything you want with it. Nobody has started the Rebel can yet, but I'm hoping somebody will one day. We have a very strong code of conduct, which everyone has to agree to, which consequently means our community is absolutely lovely. People will hop into the IRC channel, not because they're a CCAN developer, but just because we're really lovely there. And that's #CCAN on EFNet, not EFNet, Espernet, if you want to join us. So when I said that it would be like, does this work? When I said it would be like apt-get for Kerbal Space Program, I literally mean that, because what we did was we implemented the Debian spec. So all of the Debian relationships, the Debian way of comparing things, all these Debian ways of doing things, we actually just grabbed and used in the CCAN. And the way in which it works under the hood is you won't be able to read this very well, all of this metadata in JSON format. And so now, rather than humans having to understand things, you have machines which can understand things. And this is, listing dependencies and where do I grab versions from. So we have bots which go and index things. So we have about, for the CCAN, around about 15,000 users. And that's based upon the number of people who have downloaded the client in the last week. So in the last week, we've had 15,000 people download the client. We have 900 mods, or almost 900 mods, which are indexed, although some of those only exist for previous versions of Kerbal Space Program. And much to my non-delight, after writing the CCAN, Realistic Progression Lite was discontinued. So my main reason for writing this went away. We index about 3,500 releases. So you don't just have the current versions of mods, there are old versions of mods as well, which is great. If you're running an old version of KSP, it'll know about which mods exist for that old version of KSP. And this is the best part, more than 200 contributors. I kid you not. So most of those contributors have been on the metadata side of things, but we have a whole bunch of people on the code side of things. It was a really fun project because it's written in C#, and I did not know C# when I started the project. And so most of the code is written like I would write Perl. And, and people would come in and they're like, what's going on here? Like, this is this great thing, but like the code is bizarre. It's like somebody didn't know C#. I'm like, hey, I'm Paul, you're gonna teach me. So if you ever want to learn a language, be a project lead where every contributor knows more than you about that language. It's really, really good. We have, quite amazingly, infrastructure sponsorship. So AWS has given us sponsorship for 2 years, so our bots can run and we can index our mods and do all sorts of other things. We have a software development grant from the Open Source Developers Conference, so there can actually be some money for working on this. And there's also a Patreon campaign, which is mine personally, patreon.com PJF0. And so this is now my part-time job, is exclusively sort of maintaining this module manager, which is funded by our users, which is pretty darn awesome.
Give him money.
Oh, thank you. So what does this mean? Fundamentally, this means I miss playing KSP. I haven't really played KSP seriously in like the last 6 months. Part of that was the CCAN, part of that was me starting my own career mode to replace Realistic Progression Lite. So, I miss playing KSP, but for you, it means that mods are really easy to install. And that means that you can install mods, particularly something like Realism Overhaul, in seconds rather than hours. And we did some calculations. Our metric for our success with the CCAN is decades of human joy delivered. So this is the sort of stuff our users say about us. I mod dozens of games, everything from Age of Empires to Bethesda stuff, and not one game out there has anything quite like the CCAN. It's worlds ahead of any other mod manager for any other game I've ever played. And I think that's mostly because we actually have this metadata model, this dependency model, this idea that we actually know how mods interact and how to install them. So we are thinking of sort of world domination to move this to other mods as well, or other games as well, but we're going to fix up everything for the CCAN first. If you're wondering where to get it from, it's available on GitHub. There's a Patreon page. You can also subscribe to updates on there even without contributing money, so you can see what's going on. But this is wonderful if you're doing anything with mods at all. It is game-changing. Scott Manley's done a video as well. So, oh yes, what a great pun, it's game-changing. So I'm going to hand over to Alasdair before my voice completely dies, who's going to talk about hardware.
This is the bit where it's all going to go wrong.
This is all a bit where it's all going to go wrong. So, hardware. We've been talking about software so far. Software is dull. Dull, I tell you. Because eventually, you're going to need one of these. And also, it's no fun playing the game unless you have molly switches on your buttons. But it's best to start with one of these. There is a mod that lets you connect your game to Arduinos. This is an Arduino. This is an awesome thing that exists. But you're going to get very bored with that very quickly and add cardboard. And more switches. And more switches. And a lot more switches. This is part of a build that someone did that looks a lot like this. Some people do get a little bit carried away with Kerbal Space Program. Some people get a lot carried away with Kerbal Space Program. Oh, no, sorry, that's space. Yeah, Elon actually plays KSP. So, yeah, I'm really hoping he rigs that up to like the no, it's probably not going to happen. Right, so if you want to connect hardware to your game, there are more than 2 ways to do it, but I'll talk about 2 ways to do it. First of all, it's something called KSP Serial I/O. It does exactly what you think. It pushes bytes out the back of your game, down a serial cable, into whatever it is you have at the end of your serial cable. The other thing is Telemachus. Is that how you pronounce it? Telemachus?
Yeah.
OK, let's go with Telemachus. This is for your web developers in the audience. This is a WebSocket API. So it fires up a web server at the back end of the game, gives you a WebSocket API, and you can connect to that. The cool thing is you can have both of these installed together.
Microservices.
Microservices. Containerized microservices. This is the default API of the web server that it fires up. It gives you graphs, it gives you outputs, it gives you stuff. And it gives you a WebSocket API, which is like really trivial. It's a pub sub type thing. You can just connect. You can subscribe to certain notifications to it. It's all great fun. But I'm a hardware guy, so I find this dull. Flat panels with things on, very dull. So I use this, which is Serial I/O. There's actually two versions. The original version by Zitron. Anyway, that's Windows only, so that sucks. The other one is called from Unix Union, and is actually a port to another serial library, and it works cross-platform Mac, Linux, and Windows. So you can just use that one instead. It lags slightly behind the original guy's release, but it mostly keeps up. This is what we're going to build today. We're going to I built some hardware because I only had 8 minutes. But anyway, we have some hardware here. We're going to launch a rocket and actually have lights that blink on and off. And this is where it's going to go wrong. OK, so demo time. Actually, let's look at the two. Right, OK, so this is our hardware. We have an Arduino board here, which is like a really small microcontroller that does stuff. We have a couple of LEDs attached to it. This is basically as simple as you get. Blinking lights on and off is really the simplest hardware demo you can get. This is the Arduino code that controls everything. There's a bunch of boilerplate stuff, which is basically just to get the bytes out of the packet that comes out of the game and how to write bytes back, and that's about it. Here's the packet definitions. There's a handshake packet so that we know we're actually connected to the game. And this vessel packet is the stuff the game outputs. Every single frame it updates, we get one of these packets. So we get all of this stuff out of the game. We can do a whole bunch of stuff with. And we can also control stuff. So we can send packets back into the game to, say, stage rockets or blow them up, generally. Yeah. Especially if you're like going to be switching, never mind, we'll blow up a rocket soon. So once you get that boilerplate in, it's really trivial. You just have some pin modes, digital write. So you have your LEDs. You receive some handshake packet. And what I'm going to do, because I always forget to turn stabilization on, I'm going to have an LED light up when I push the button to turn stabilization on, because I like bright LEDs shining in my face. So that's it. OK, so right. Here is the game. I've actually deployed both of the mods in here. So this little aerial here is the thing that goes to Telemachus. So this is the thing that will let our rocket output data into the web API. The serial I/O thing needs no part in the game. But if we go to the launch, tower, and I switch to this, with a bit of luck. There, OK. Hey. So this is the light there is the button, the light that is telling us that the handshake packet has happened, and it's handshaking back and forth. If we look here at the bottom right, you can see just above the astronauts, we actually are connected to a serial port right there. It's just disappeared. And if I hit the button that turns SAS on and off, which is the stabilization, you can see I'm lighting up another LED right there. See? So that's to tell me what SAS is happening. Right, OK. So what we also have, though, is this. So let's just make sure that's connected. This is Telemachus. And it is getting a whole bunch of telemetry out from the WebSocket. And if let's just fix the staging. Yeah, I always have to fix the staging. Right, OK. So also we want to throttle up. We're going to launch a rocket. There should be some sound. And you can see we're actually getting telemetry here. As it's zooming upwards, we're getting nice telemetry. And if we can also open a map that shows us exactly where it is. Yep, see, sound found a signal, so we're just launching. And we can also have some basic flight controls. I'm on the right screen here, yes, OK. So what I'm going to do now is stage and then quickly switch. Up. Come on, stage. Yeah, there you go. You just saw them falling away there, right? There we go. Yeah. Staging. Yeah, oh dear. Oh dear, I think we're crashing now. There we go. Oops, there's the parachute. OK. So they're going to die. Never mind, that happens a lot. It was Jeb on board. He was happy. It was fine. So, 4? 4. Okay, so that was a demo. You can connect hardware to your KSP. You can make it nice and shiny and have lights and switches that have moly. And then there's a big button you can push. And it's all good. Next part.
Okay, is that right? Cool. So they said, you know what? Let's let Tim speak last. He won't ruin it by making chainsaw noises. This essentially is going to be me talking about what I think people should be doing or are doing with KSP. So when you buy the game, I think Squad C's a little bit like this. You're meant to start a brand new game. You're meant to pick an easy mission. You finish it. You pick a harder mission. You finish it. You repeat step 4. No one does that. The way I think people play is they get confused. They manage to not blow up a rocket. You feel really good when you do that. You then manage to orbit Kerbin, as we saw in the first part. That's actually not that easy. You then manage to do something cool. Now, what the cool bit is very much a personal thing. It's up to you sort of thing. You then repeat step 4. After a while, you get tired of step 4, and then you move to step 6, which is where you watch other people watch KSP. So much of the cool thing about KSP is its vicarious nature. It's a lot of fun to watch other people play it. So basically, that's into Let's Play videos, which is pretty much just this guy. He's Scottish. His name is Scott. Realistically, he is the Kerbal Space Program Let's Play community. He does heaps of Let's Play videos. They're about 10 minutes long. They're really funny, really entertaining. The more popular ones have about 1.5 million views on YouTube. If you like KSP or like the idea of KSP, watch some of his videos and then you'll actually like it and buy it. The next thing that people tend to do is challenges. So, you know, there's an entire subreddit devoted to issuing challenges to people and people accepting them and do them. So you then try and complete the challenge and then you show off. I'd love to show you guys this, but we really don't have time. But this was one guy doing a grand tour, which means you visit every planet and every moon in the system. He did it with just a jetpack. So after he got his rocket up in the air, he then just did it all with his EVA suit. It took Jeb 147 years to do it. But luckily Kerbals don't age, so kudos Jeb. Then there's lots of crazy stuff. So this guy here, so in version 0.9 of the game, Squad delayed releasing it. So there was a guy called the Kerbal Terrorist, and every day he was killing Kerbals that Squad delayed the releases. This kept going until eventually Squad released it, in which case he set up a giant sky crane to actually put the Kerbals back where they belong. Like so. And then there's Kerbal, which is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Someone actually launched an entire football stadium into space. They then got teams to come in and play the goddamn game. Then once the game was over, they blew the stadium up. And now, of course, there's art. This is Mona Lisa Kerman, which is the most weird. I have searched for some weird shit this morning. This one I particularly love because that's actually pretty accurate. NASA's rockets suck. Kerbal rockets are amazing. Look how many things that has on it. There are also people with far more talent than really brains, perhaps, with some of this stuff. Look how brilliant that is. That's amazing. This guy does heaps of these things. He actually paints scenes. Then he does stuff like Ned Flanders Kerman and the most interesting Kerbal in the world. You also get a lot of machinima. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Sure, I am. Machinima. So this is a short video about 10 minutes long from a guy called Nasalt. URL's down there. His videos are really amazing. He tells stories just using KSP. This one is sort of like a 2001 Space Odyssey retelling. Yeah. There's also Kerbal Comics, which is a kind of interesting website. They're kind of jerks about their licensing, so I didn't want to put an actual picture on. What's the right word? So then the next thing I want to talk about is one of the slightly weirder parts I found. So while I was researching this, someone mentioned, hey, there's fanfic. No. I'm like, yeah, of course, fanfic. So I read it. Some of it's good, some of it's crap, some of it's erotic. The URL's down there if you'd like to go read it.
Let
It
the
was-
rest of us reach minimum safe distance first.
I don't recommend you read it. It also... Yeah, the structural failure. Sadly, it wasn't the only one. It was also probably the most restrained one I read. Now, I'll talk a little bit serious for a moment. So education, aka learning about rockets. And this is something you can do at KSP as indicated by XKCD. And I'm pretty sure this is true. I haven't met anyone at NASA, but I reckon they're smarter since playing KSP.
I have, they are.
There we go. And Kerbal EDU is a new program, so I'm going to actually put a serious face back on now, so sorry. Kerbal EDU is a program that they're actually implementing between Squad and Teacher Gaming, where they're actually putting in little physicsy things so you can actually see the forces and other useful information that's actually affecting your craft. So you can actually learn properly about rocket science. You can actually see potential energy, kinetic energy. There's mission creators where you can actually create this stuff. You can see acceleration graphs. You can script all this stuff. You can get really detailed information on what's happening. And despite the fact that KSP is fake and the worlds are not the same as ours, the physics are so good you can actually learn this stuff properly. And it's something quite interesting that I think more people should be considering having a look at. But that's actually us done. I think we finished with a little bit of time spare, so thank you.
Awesome.
Do we have time for questions?
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
4 minutes for
Questions.
questions.
You there with the horns.
I'm just curious about your defined number of hours playing, thinking about.
Multiple years.
Many.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Too
combined. Yeah, like in terms of total time spent. I'm guessing at least a year.
After I hit 500 hours on the CCAN, I stopped counting.
Yeah.
I have the thing running in the background most of the time as I develop hardware, so I can't tell anymore.
Yeah, lots.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the music just gets stuck in your head.
Oh,
as you,
God,
yeah, because
yeah.
like do some writing on the book, tab to the game, tab back, and like, you know, da, 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 da,
We've theoretically been writing this book for a year now because it was the OSCON last year when we started, and the music has been going ever since.
There's a really nice piano version of the main themes on SoundCloud. I'd recommend it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Other
Can we? Is there a mod where we can put that in instead of the normal thing?
So
Probably.
that comes down to licensing. Ask me afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
You there, sir.
Who actually has the rocket science degree?
My PhD is in astrophysics.
What does everyone else do?
My PhD is in human-computer interaction, so nothing to do with astrophysics.
Mobile
troublemaker.
computing.
Yeah, and I research jokes on Reddit.
Yeah.
And Tim watches people outside with their
Yeah.
phones.
Yep. No, that's literally what I do. Any other questions?
Cool. Well, thank you for coming.
No, cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.